3 weeks had passed since that morning at the cafe told the copyright. Daniel had thought about Sarah often, wondering if she'd taken his advice, hoping she'd found her way to steadier ground. He'd meant what he said about wanting to know she was okay. The first snow of the season had arrived early, blanketing the city in white. Daniel was driving home from the hardware store, taking his usual route along Highway 47, when he saw it. A red sedan had spun off the road, its front end crumpled against the guardrail, steam rising from the hood into the cold air. Without thinking, Daniel pulled over and turned on his hazard lights. His father had been a volunteer firefighter for 30 years. Some lessons ran deep in the blood. You don't drive past someone who needs help. As he approached the vehicle, his heart began to race. Through the spider-webbed windshield, he could see someone slumped in the driver's seat. A young woman with blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail. She was wearing a red blouse, and there was blood on her face. Daniel's hands were already pulling out his phone, dialing 911 as he ran through the snow. But when he reached the driver's side door and looked inside, his breath caught in his throat. "Sarah," he whispered. Her eyes were closed, her breathing shallow. Blood trickled from a cut above her eyebrow. Daniel tried the door, but it was jammed. The operator's voice crackled through his phone. 911, what's your emergency? Single vehicle accident on Highway 47, just past the Miller Road exit, Daniel said, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. One person trapped inside, she's unconscious and bleeding. I need ambulance and fire rescue immediately. Sir, stay on the line. Help is on the way. Do not attempt to move the victim. But Daniel could smell it now. Gasoline. A dark puddle was spreading beneath the car, glistening in the snow. There's a fuel leak, he said into the phone. His voice remained calm, but his mind was racing. He'd seen what happened when cars caught fire. He'd lost his wife to cancer, but he'd watched his father pull people from burning vehicles. He knew the stakes. Sir, I need you to move to a safe distance and wait for emergency services. Daniel looked at Sarah's pale face, at the way her chest barely rose and fell. He thought of Emma, of how he'd want someone to risk everything for her if she were in danger. He thought of Sarah's words from weeks ago. I felt like I was disappearing. I can't do that, Daniel said quietly. He ended the call and pocketed his phone. The driver's side door was jammed, but the back door opened with some effort. Daniel climbed inside, the smell of gasoline stronger now, mixed with the metallic scent of blood and the sharp odor of antifreeze. Sarah, he said, touching her shoulder gently. Sarah, can you hear me? Her eyelids fluttered. Daniel, her voice was weak, confused. Is that? Why are you? Don't try to talk, he said. I'm going to get you out of here. He assessed the situation quickly. Her seatbelt was locked from the impact. The airbag had deployed but then deflated. She wasn't pinned, but the door frame was bent inward, trapping her legs. Daniel's hands found the seatbelt release, pressed it firmly. It clicked open. He carefully supported Sarah's head and neck, remembering his father's training. Don't move a victim unless the danger of staying is greater than the danger of moving. The smell of gasoline made the decision for him. This might hurt, he warned, but I need you to work with me. Can you do that? Sarah's eyes opened wider, focusing on him with effort. The smell. Something's wrong. I know. That's why we need to move. Now, with infinite care, Daniel began to ease her backward out of her seat. Sarah cried out in pain, and Daniel's heart clenched, but he didn't stop. Every second mattered. He could hear sirens in the distance now, but they weren't close enough. I've got you, he murmured, his voice the same gentle tone he'd used with Emma through 1,000 childhood fears. You're safe. I've got you. He maneuvered her through the gap between the front seats, supporting her weight as he pulled her into the back of the car. Her leg caught on something, and she gasped in pain. Almost there, Daniel said. Stay with me, Sarah. Finally, he had her in the back seat. He kicked open the rear door on the passenger side and carefully pulled her out into the snow. The moment they were clear of the vehicle, Daniel lifted Sarah in his arms and carried her 20 feet away from the car, settling her gently onto the snowy ground. That's when he heard it, a soft whooshing sound. He turned just in time to see flames lick up from beneath the red sedan. Within seconds, the front of the car was engulfed. Daniel positioned himself between Sarah and the burning vehicle, shielding her with his body as he checked her over. The cut on her forehead was bleeding but not severely. Her pupils responded to light, which was a good sign. She was conscious, talking to him. "You saved me," she whispered, tears mixing with the blood on her face. "You saved my life. You're going to be fine," Daniel assured her, taking off his coat and tucking it around her. "Help is almost here." The ambulance arrived minutes later, followed by fire trucks. Paramedics rushed over with a gurney and medical equipment. As they began working on Sarah, one of them looked up at Daniel. "You got her out just in time," the paramedics said, glancing at the now fully engulfed vehicle. "Another minute and..." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Sarah reached out and grabbed Daniel's hand as they prepared to load her into the ambulance. "Don't leave," she said, her voice urgent despite her injuries. "I won't," Daniel promised. "I'll follow right behind." At the hospital, Daniel sat in the waiting room while Sarah was examined and treated. He'd called Emma to let her know he'd be late for their weekly video chat. She'd heard the strain in his voice and made him promise to call her back when he knew more. It was nearly 2 hours before a doctor emerged. "Are you family?" she asked. "I'm the person who pulled her from the car," Daniel said, standing. "How is she?" The doctor smiled. "She's going to be fine. Mild concussion, some bruising, and she needed stitches for the laceration on her forehead, but no internal injuries. No broken bones. She's extremely lucky." "Can I see her?" "She's been asking for you." Room 214. Daniel found Sarah sitting up in the hospital bed, a large bandage above her eye, looking tired but alert. When she saw him, her face crumpled with emotion. "Hey now," Daniel said, moving to her bedside. "No more tears today. You've had enough for one afternoon." "I got the job," Sarah said, and despite everything, she was smiling. "That's where I was driving from. I went to see your friends at the nursing program like you told me to. They interviewed me, and I got into the program. Full scholarship, including a part-time job at the teaching hospital. I was so excited. I guess I wasn't paying attention to the road conditions." Daniel felt warmth spread through his chest. "Sarah, that's wonderful news. I was coming to tell you," she continued. "I was going to call you when I got home. I wanted you to know that what you did that day, when you gave me a hug and listened to me and helped me, it changed everything. You made me believe I was worth saving." Daniel had to clear his throat before he could speak. "You were always worth saving. You just needed to see it, and then you saved me again," Sarah said softly. "Literally this time, the paramedics told me about the fire. They said if you hadn't gotten me out when you did, but I did." Daniel interrupted gently. "And you're here, and you're going to be fine. That's what matters." A nurse knocked on the door frame. "Sorry to interrupt, but we need to contact Miss Morrison's emergency contact." She listed someone named Robert Morrison. Sarah's face went pale. "That's my father." "But please, I don't want." The nurse looked apologetic. "Hospital policy requires us to notify next of kin for any patient admitted through emergency." Danielle squeezed Sarah's hand. "It's going to be all right." But Sarah shook her head. "You don't understand. My father. He's not like you. He's not kind. When I left home, he told me never to come back. He said I was." She couldn't finish. "Then I'll stay with you when he arrives," Daniel said firmly. "If that's what you want." Sarah nodded gratefully, tears sliding down her cheeks again. An hour later, Daniel was still there when Robert Morrison arrived. He burst through the door like a storm, a tall man in an expensive suit, his face lined with worry that quickly shifted to something else when he saw his daughter. "Sarah," he said, his voice tight. But before he could say more, another man entered behind him. This man was younger, mid-30s, wearing a similar suit. He carried himself with authority, but his eyes were kind. "Dad, slow down," the younger man said. Then he saw Sarah and his expression softened. "Sarah, thank God you're all right." Sarah looked confused. "Michael, what are you doing here?" "Your father called me the moment the hospital reached him. I came as fast as I could." Robert Morrison stood awkwardly by the door, as if unsure whether he was welcome. Michael, apparently Sarah's brother, moved to her bedside. "We've been worried about you," Michael said quietly. "When you left, Dad said some things he didn't mean. He's been trying to find you for months." "That's not what he said when I left," Sarah replied, her voice small. Robert finally stepped forward. Daniel watched the older man's face, saw the way his hands trembled slightly, the way his jaw worked as if he were fighting for words. "I was angry," Robert said finally, his voice rough. "You wanted to go into nursing. I'd built a business empire and wanted you to join it. I thought." He paused, swallowing hard. "I thought I knew what was best for you. I said terrible things. Things a father should never say to his daughter." Sarah stared at him, speechless. "I've spent every day since you left regretting those words," Robert continued, his composure beginning to crack. "Michael's been searching for you. We hired investigators, checked hospitals, shelters. We've been terrified something like this would happen and we wouldn't know, that we'd never get the chance to make things right." Tears were streaming down Sarah's face now. "You were looking for me every single day," Michael confirmed.